Hi there. I'm Igor Ledochowski, the co-founder of the Hypnosis Training Academy and author of the world's best-selling trainings on conversational hypnosis. I believe that anyone who wants to be a force for good in the world through the power of hypnosis should have the opportunity to do so, which is why I've made the classical foundational conversational hypnosis professional hypnotherapy program available for you for free right here. So, if you want to become a better communicator and use hypnosis to uplift people around you, inspire them, and enhance the lives of those who you care about during normal everyday conversations, then this training is for you. Enjoy.
So welcome to take 2 of the exciting Conversational Hypnosis Professional Hypnotherapy Certification Program. You're practicing, you see. How are you guys doing? You ready for a big day? Well, today we're going to find the white rabbit and follow him down the rabbit hole. So, great. Let's start today off then with just a general question answer open frame. I like to start morning sessions by giving you an opportunity to ask questions, make comments in general, so that there's no real limits except for modesty and propriety. Anyone have any questions or comments they want to make?
During our practices yesterday, I ran into a situation where I was not able to absorb attention nor bypass the critical factor, nor stimulate the subconscious. What do you do in a situation like that?
Well, what specifically happened?
What specifically happened is I was not able to take charge of the interaction. The client wanted to run the interaction completely. Okay,
how? What actually was happening? Just describe the movie, if you like, to me.
Well, when we started talking about what were the objectives that we were going to try to meet, the person started talking about life philosophy and all the sorts of intellectual things that this person wanted to do. And
let me just pause you there. What specifically were they saying?
They were specifically saying, I don't believe in...
very importantly, how are you feeling at the time that they were talking about those thoughts? How are you feeling at the time they were just talking about their thoughts rather than their experience?
I don't know if you're asking.
That's right.
Me. Yes.
Now, just taking a step back for a moment, how did you experience that questioning process with you for a moment?
It pushed me into trance and I was confused.
Exactly. So what I'm doing is, I'm taking control of the conversation. You're running off in different directions. You're not quite sure where you want to go, and that's partly what the other person's doing as well. And clients will do this a lot, right? Now you want to give people a little bit of headway. They want to tell you their life story, etc. Give them an opportunity to do that, because that's part of their release process. That's part of how they get a sense of like, someone's really hearing me. With some people, you may have to sit there for half an hour and really listen to their life story, because that's exactly what they need. In fact, they might not even need therapy after that, right? With other people, and with most people, you're just going to go, okay, I've had enough. I've done my sharing bit, now it's time to actually do the work. So you politely interrupt them. You say, can I just pause you there for a moment? Or hold on a second, I need to ask you something very important. So with your whole attitude and your demeanor, you pause them, and you redirect their attention somewhere else. Something more specific, basically somewhere where it hasn't been before, right? And you notice that as I ask you these questions, your searching became narrowed down, but in a place you didn't expect it to be. Now I have your attention. And because your attention is somewhere where you didn't expect it to be, I've also started significantly bypassing your critical factor. Does that make sense? So that's how I would do it. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Great. Who has the next microphone? Go ahead.
Yes, I didn't have a question, just a comment. I wanted to thank you for that simple, elegant self-hypnosis model you gave, but I was used to a much more cumbersome and ineffective model.
Okay.
As you can see, I cover a lot of surface area when I shave in the morning. Gave myself an excellent slash this morning, and we all know how a good razor cut bleeds, right? And I thought, what an excellent opportunity to give this a shot. And within about 3 seconds, I did this, like you said, imagine your arm heavy, warm, and then I thought I'd build an image of the flesh knitting and weaving itself back together and blood stopping. Within about 3 seconds, it was gone, and I can't even quite tell where it was now.
Perfect.
And I'm thinking like, ooh, voodoo magic, So just thank you.
And let me say thank you, because I'm actually really, I feel very charmed when people tell me they're actually using this stuff in the real world. Because let's face it, we're in a seminar room, and people can go wild and crazy in seminar rooms. But when you leave the seminar room, why leave all this stuff behind? The point of what you do here is so that when you go back into the outside world, you're more effective, you're a better person, you're different. And well done for actually using it in a practical way.
I felt like before I was trying to hammer nails with a pair of pliers, and you just gave me a nice, 9-penny nail hammer to work with, or even 9-pound hammer. Slap there, okay, we're done,
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
I just want to say, I've been in practice for about 5 years now, and I've always had the intention of really helping my clients. But coming in and learning the concept of H+ affected me this morning. I booked 3 new clients before I came in today.
Wow.
With keeping H+ consciously in my mind while I was on the phone with them.
Mm-hmm.
And one woman was really resistant when she called, and I talked to her initially, and within a matter of about 30 seconds, flipped her around, booked her a session on Tuesday.
Wow, that's great. So where's Alex in the room? Is Alex here yet today? Oh, here you go. Change your shirt. How am I supposed to recognize you when you change your shirt? But this is exactly what Alex was talking about, is it not? So, this is not just theory. You just made some cash, and it's going to help a person as a result. So well done. Thank you for sharing that. Who's got the next microphone? Oh, go ahead.
I work in a sales environment and with quite high pressure. Now, when you go into H+, it's all very well to do it in a therapeutic environment because it lends itself to that. But with a lot of different attitudes and whatnot going around, how do you get yourself into that state quickly?
Okay, first of all, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, right? So for me, when I start doing hypnosis, I fall into it. I can't do hypnosis without doing it. It pulls me in now. But it took me a lot, actually, I was lucky because I was very insecure when I started hypnosis. So the only way I could do hypnosis is if I trance myself out so much beforehand that I forget myself enough to do the work. So now, the opposite happens. When I start doing work, it just pulls me back in because that's kind of what my body and mind expects to do. So the simplest thing is to do what Nathan was doing this morning, which is do self-hypnosis to get yourself there. Something I used to do when I was doing executive coaching, partly because I usually bite off more than I can chew. My first few clients, I was terrified. I'd actually drive up to the place we'd be doing the coaching session about 2 hours early, just so I could sit in the car for an hour and a half, doing all this, right? And just seriously, and I would spend probably half an hour just getting myself calmed down, clearing the slate. That's where I got the idea of clearing the slate from, because I realized I can't do self-hypnosis whilst I'm on the verge of a panic attack. And then I'd spend another half hour or so kind of mentally rehearsing the session, where I can't predict what it would be like. This is where I got the idea of H+. It's just a great outcome, and I'd have this thing of like people shaking me by the hand at the end saying, this is great, I really appreciate it, this has really worked well, and I loved all the stuff we were doing. And I would focus that with such intensity that when I went into the room and actually met the client, I was in a kind of an afterglow. You know the double dip thing? What ended up happening is I walked in the afterglow of that intense H+ sort of self-hypnosis trance, and then that would set the scene. And then from there, because that's how we started, that's how people expect things to continue, so it becomes self-fulfilling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what you're saying in a roundabout way, you started at the end and worked your way back to the beginning.
So in terms of the
outcome.
Sometimes yes, sometimes I'd start at the beginning, work to the other end, sometimes I'd start at the end and work backwards. I'd do whatever seemed right at the time. There wasn't a particular delineation, and with some people it was different to others. Who's got the next, someone else got the next microphone? Or just pass it back then. Over here, Joshua.
Igor, one thing I was going to...
Go ahead, I'm listening to him.
one of the things I was going to suggest was the H+ is the one thing that isn't new to me, everything else is, although the terminology H+ is new. But one thing that I think might be also a good suggestion for the gentleman in front of me and for anybody else to put themselves in that right mode, and I've done this with patients actually, is actually think about how you would want to feel if you were in their situation. So it's almost like a projection. And I know this might sound metaphysic metaphysical or whatever you want to call it, whatever the term is, but the state of love and gratitude. So I actually put myself into a situation of imagining myself with one of my children. And that immediately calms me down, and I'm in a state of happiness. Once you're in a state of happiness, then you want to help somebody else.
It just projects. I totally agree with that. Those of you who've got a conversational hypnosis program, that's what the instant rapport technique is, really. You've described it and you've discovered for yourself. It's not rocket science. Most people will have experienced that when you are in this great state, and I think love and gratitude is exactly the right labels for this, that people around you respond in similar ways. Just like when you're feeling a little insecure or when you're feeling a little bit grouchy. Have you noticed that when you're grouchy, the world becomes a real arsehole? And what's up with that, eh? Who's next? I think Jeffrey, go ahead.
I just wanted to share briefly what got me hooked on your material was I had the conversational hypnosis series, and I'd been studying it, and one day, I turned my CD player off, and I went to the store, pet store, and I bought something for $18.55, and I gave the gal $18.75.
Right.
And I said, "You owe me 20." And she reaches into the register and hands me a $20 bill. And I stood there holding it in front of her face for about 30 seconds. And I said, "Don't you want to think about this?" And she just looked so confounded, like she had no idea what had happened. And I said, if your boss checks the till at the end of the day, he'll be a little upset with you. And I handed it back to her and said, "It's 20 cents. And the boss was at the register behind, and he just busted up laughing.
That's great. By the way, don't be surprised if these sort of things happen to you as well after the seminar. It's just when your mind starts thinking in a certain way, it starts popping out, right? One of the reasons I really emphasize H+, is because if there's no other tool you take away for the rest of your life as one to ease your transition through life, in my opinion, that's it. I'm serious. You can have fancy language patterns and cool mental manipulations and some evil emotional jujitsu. But if you have H+, you'll do a lot better. So thank you for that. Who had the next one? Go ahead.
So I've been kind of doing this work since the middle 60s.
Okay.
And one of the things that I feel that I get really good results from people is I hold an attitude. And the attitude is when I see somebody, they're coming in and talking to me, I hold a view like H+ of these people whole and complete. No matter what they tell me, no matter how maybe dark it may be up here, if I talk to them and go deep enough, it's always beautiful what they really want. So I just focus in on people, and no matter what they do, I hold that attitude and that vision of them, and I think it's like a vibration, and the people, I don't really have to do much. As long as I hold that vibration, people get miracles.
I'm going to say that's perfect. What you're doing there is called the Pygmalion effect, and that's actually how I actually end up getting to the idea of H+ myself. There's an interesting study where, most of you may know this one, where they went to university, I can't remember who did the study now, and they gave people a fake aptitude test, at the end of which they didn't even give the results to the students, they gave the teachers the results, saying, these students are no-hopers, they don't do very well, these students will do really well. Now, the students never heard what those results were. Only the teachers had expectations. As a result of that, the students actually ended up performing exactly in accordance with the expectations of the teachers, forgetting whether or not their natural aptitude was there or not. So, if it's that powerful in, that kind of setting, why not use it as part of what you're doing? Now, more importantly, and you'll probably back me up on this one, when clients come in, they are extremely good hypnotists. They are so good, they'll have you convinced within 5 minutes that their problem is not only serious and real, but unsolvable. And you're sitting there going, oh my God, I'd be screwed if I was in your shoes too. Right? It's what they do. Any hypnotherapists here, is that what happens to you? Right? So you have to cut through that, if for no other reason than so you can actually do your work. But part of what happens as a result of cutting through that and seeing them, as you say really elegantly there, Philip, as whole and complete, happy and healthy, is somehow, I don't know how you communicate it, maybe in your tonality, maybe in your language, maybe in your mannerisms, but they end up conforming to that view as well, which I think is beautiful.
There's something called the law of resonance. It's a universal law. It's not a Newtonian law, but if there's a high vibration and a low vibration, either the low vibration is going to come to the high or the high is going to come to the low. So theoretically, if you hold a high vibration and you don't move, their vibration is going to move up.
This is definitely a case for being stubborn. I agree. There's another microphone over here. Go ahead.
Do you have much experience utilizing these techniques with individuals that have ADHD?
Simply spoken, no. I had to work once with a guy who was diagnosed with, what was it called? Pseudo-schizophrenia, which basically means the doctors had no idea what it was. And seriously, it's true. And this guy had an attention span of a gnat. It was difficult working with him. But then the interesting thing is, with him, you found little hotspots where suddenly he would just zone in, and you'd have it. So I haven't got a huge amount of experience, but what I would do is either find a hotspot like that might grab their attention more. And the other thing is you can frustrate the response by getting them more ADHD than they already are. Seriously. And then getting them closer, and that's like, stand still for a moment and go, oh, okay. And then you take it that way. And you might even be able to work the distraction method by just seeding very small ideas over a longer period of time, or over a period of time you see lots of very small ideas, but you have to run the distraction rather than letting them run the distraction. So you want to be in control of the process rather than them running the process. Does that make sense? But I haven't got a lot of experience, so that's more what I would do rather than what I know works. Over here, go ahead.
One of the things that I became aware of, or I was led to understand early on when I began trying to work with this, is that we have within our minds, everyone does, the end result benefit. It always will pop up, but the end result benefit is a noun. Mm-hmm. And until you can visualize that end result benefit, what that means to me and how I go about doing it, you visualize it, it now becomes a verb, something you can act upon. Mm-hmm. And unless you've given something in that process to act upon, it always remains a person, place, or a thing that's abstract out there that you're never really in touch with. You can't put your fingers on, you can't use your tools with. Mm-hmm. And by visualizing that, whether it's yourself or giving it to someone else, something that they can actually visualize, actually acting with, it now becomes a verb, and once something is acted upon, it becomes real.
And this is one of the reasons why I like what Philip says, seeing your client as being whole, healthy, and happy. Not necessarily how Erickson did it, which is like married with 4 children. It worked for him. Actually, there's reasons for doing that, which worked, but modern society perhaps you can't impose marriage and 4 children on them. But still, seeing them healthy, happy, having achieved whatever they came to achieve, it's part of what makes you able to function as a hypnotherapist. And the weird thing is, and again, you guys probably back me up on this, when you do it, in the middle of therapy, you can change on a dime, do a completely different thing, and it'll still work. It'll work better. You'll know where to go because you have a purpose. Without purpose, you can do nothing. Right? So yes, I agree with that. Who had the next microphone? Oh, I guess you do.
What do you think about the ethics of stage hypnotherapy or hypnotist?
Stage hypnotherapy I've never seen before.
No.
But yes, I know where you're getting it from.
No.
Stage hypnosis. Well, I have an unusual view for most hypnotherapists. First of all, I think if it's done ethically, in other words, respectfully to the people on the stage, I think it's great. Because one thing I recognize is that our profession would not exist but for stage hypnotists. And I mean that on 2 levels. First of all, back when Mesmer was kind of kicked out of the medical community and out of France, etc., it was the equivalent of stage hypnotists that kept it alive long enough for doctors and the medical community to get back interested in it in a less, shall we say, metaphysical sort of way. The second reason, which is the more modern reason, is I've traveled a lot, and for example, South America and Asia has almost no hypnosis, almost no stage hypnosis exist. And there are no hypnotherapists either. So people don't even know what it is. In some places, people don't even know what it is. They think you're a shaman, they think you're a witch doctor, right? They have no idea. So the fact that in North America and in Europe, people can actually make a living as hypnotherapists, in my opinion, is down only to stage hypnotists, because most hypnotherapists are so poor at self-marketing. They're literally gathering in the remnants of a stage hypnotist, and that's who the client base becomes. So I think it's great as long as it's done respectfully of the other people. Unfortunately, not all do so, but I think most people do a pretty decent job. But like in everything, some people don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How do you explain? I know that there are a lot of demystifiers in your handbook, but I mean, people come to me with all kinds of preconceived notions. In fact, they're most of them are so nervous and worried. So I'm curious about that.
So the frame I usually use is to ask them, have you ever seen a magician do his stuff like illusion? The lady floating up. Do you think that's real? Do you think that's real? When a magician makes the lady float across the audience, is she really flying? It's a question. You don't think so?
No.
Okay. But the lady's physically up in the air because you can see her there, but it's not flying. That there's some mechanism going on which you can't see. Maybe it's wires, something like that. Well, a stage show works the same way. The people really are up there, and they're really doing those things you see them doing. But what's happening inside them is not quite what you think is happening. So it's kind of like a psychological illusion. For the most part, who is in the stage show? What does the stage hypnotist do? The first thing he does is he asks for volunteers. Now, if you know you're going to be acting like a chicken, which most people do, right? Are you going to go up there? Oh. Unless you want to act like a chicken, in which case, yeah, I'm coming up there right now, right? And that's really what happens in the stage show. It's an illusion of control because the people in the stage show are handing over responsibility because they want to have that feeling of freedom that they can do all these silly things without having to take personal responsibility for it. Now, the interesting thing is that as many stage shows, and stage hypnotists will tell you this, and you can actually see this in live shows if you watch out for this, a stage hypnotist will make a suggestion for the group, and some of them will not follow up on it. They will not act it out, right? I'll give you a couple of examples. One lady, one stage hypnotist had this Hawaiian hula bahati at the end to just finish off everyone dancing, stuff like that. One lady, like the star of the show, refused to move. And at the end of the show, he comes up to her and says, why wouldn't you move? You were such a good thing. You did everything. You were eating your onions and you're talking to Martians, all the rest of it. Why not dancing? She looks up at him and says, oh, no, we don't dance. It's against my religion. Another example is, have you ever seen the following sort of stunt done by a stage hypnotist? It's early morning, you're brushing your teeth, everyone's going, you're taking a shower, and everyone does all this, right? Whoever showers with their clothes on. And yet, you see them on the stage show with their fully clothed, miming a shower. It's because the unconscious knows that there's kind of a dual reality going on, and it's still protecting the individual. If it was a genuine control thing, they would strip stark naked and get into a shower like they would normally do, but they don't. Because the unconscious is still there and it's still protecting them. In the same ways, it'll be there to protect you throughout the course of this hypnotic interaction. Does that answer your question? Yes. Anyone else? Oh, go ahead.
In regards to ADHD, I'm just wondering, has hypnosis been able to help those who have bipolar or dyslexia or anything of those disabilities?
Honestly, I don't know. I haven't looked at the research, so I don't even know if there is research on that. So I don't know. I think dyslexia is more likely to be you're going to have an easier time with dyslexia than maybe with bipolar, because I think if bipolar is genuinely genetic stroke chemical, as people say it is, then you may have to do more work to help bring that into rein. But I don't know. I haven't worked with it, and I don't know about the literature on it, so give it a go. Seriously, give it a go, and you'll probably be able to tell us next time. Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, one of the things that really attracted me to the tape program, the CD program on conversational hypnosis, is that I totally believe that the quality of our life is in direct relationship to the quality of our communication skills. And it's like both in business and in personal life. You were mentioning about the therapist and the person hypnotizing the therapist, that they really have an insurmountable problem. I've done sales training for years and have always taught people that there is a sale that's going to be made in every case. Either you're going to sell the prospect on the product or service that you have, or they're going to sell you on the fact that they can't buy. A sale will take place. It's just a question of who's going to get the sale.
Right.
And from a personal standpoint, I've done gold motivational seminars for years, and I've always had the perspective of looking at goal setting in a sales process. Exactly the same tools and interactions take place when we set goals. Mm-hmm. And we either sell ourselves on achieving our goal, mm-hmm. or we sell ourselves on not achieving our goal.
I agree.
Either way a sale takes place, the only difference is we're both the buyer and the seller. Mm-hmm. And the happiness, the joy, the success we have in our life depends upon our inner communication. Mm-hmm. And that's what I saw conversational hypnosis as being just this incredible tool that we can use not only in our business world, our personal relationships, but specifically with ourselves.
I agree. You've just described, by the way, a very elegant form of self-hypnosis, which is true. I totally agree with what you're saying there. Go ahead.
My question is about people who are so convinced that their problem is insurmountable and cannot be fixed. There's someone I've worked with a few times who comes to me like this, and I'm able to turn around the frame that she's operating in during a session, and it seems very successful, and maybe the effects work for a couple of days, but inevitably this person comes back in the same despondent, world is a disaster kind of frame. Okay. And what can we do to help someone who's so stuck?
Day 5. So that sounds like there's a parts conflict going on, or a secondary gain thing, so they need disaster in order to maintain some positive side effect in their life, right? That's why they'll get better, but then when they get better and they start losing that secondary gain, that side benefit of having disaster in their life, they'll go, oh, well, better have disaster again because life's better with it, right? So dealing with that, which we'll do on day 5, should take care of it, and recognize that you want to also give them a chance to have a time period to grow in. So they may come back saying that it's all still disaster, but actually the disaster is halved from the last time, and each time we go through another iteration, which we'll come on to tomorrow, so little loops of therapy, if you like, they come back a little bit better, a little bit happier. They just don't realize it as much because half full still looks full to them. It's just the containers become smaller. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
So between those two, I'd say that's where I'd work in. Any more for any more? Or shall we begin day 2? Oh, one last one. Go ahead.
I guess I'm a little retarded. I have no idea what H+ is.
Okay, no, that's fine. You've been doing it, by the way. You have been doing it. Okay. H+ is 2 simple things. You think of it as an intense emotion or a desire to, 1, hypnotize the other person, and number 2, have them experience something really positive, either very pleasant or life-changing, something like that. So when you approach someone with, when you're going to hypnotize someone, you don't just go, all right, so look at the wall and, yeah, count from 10 down to 1, sleepy, 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 close your eyes, right? Do you see a complete lack of intention to hypnotize there? Versus, go ahead and look at that wall. That's it, look at that wall, there you go. And we count from 10 to 1 and notice how your eyes just get a little sleepy, and that's it. 10, sleepy and heavy, there you go. 9. And then coming back in your own free time. So notice how by changing my intensity, my intent, my behavior changes, my tonality changes, my language changes, and you sense the difference, do you not, between, ADD Igor and Hypno Igor, right? The same is true not just of inducing a trance, because let's face it, that's just the beginning of something we want to do. Once you've got a trance, you want to do something with it, right? So you may as well do something really positive for that person, which is what the plus is about. Your desire not just to hypnotize someone, but when they're in hypnosis, not to make them look like a chicken, not to, control them, not to be like, ooh, I'm got my top hat and my monocle somewhere and I'll be swinging my pocket watch, but rather to open the doorway inside their mind to this wonderful other world where they can discover that the world can be a better place than they've ever realized before. That to me is what H plus means. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so, one last question. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is really a follow-up question from something that we saw yesterday.
Okay.
I believe it was with Wendy that you were working with.
Okay.
And as you were working with her, you noticed that it seemed that her cold or whatever, that her unconscious mind was trying to communicate with her, right? And when I woke up this morning, like I had a headache. And one of the things that I've noticed about a headache is that it's very dynamic and it can move around. And I'm just wondering, is this a new way to understand what a headache is? And is it always the case, or?
Okay, when we talk about pain in general, pain is a signal from the body, right? So really, it's a signal from the unconscious mind. Pain is a signal that you should pay attention to something. Now that something may be something physical, like stop bumping your arm or it'll fall off, right? It might be a signal, but because you have learned, or your unconscious has learned, that when it sends a pain signal, you pay attention and you probably stop doing something. It's a good way to inhibit something or to make you focus on something, right? Over a period of time, it begins to learn that, hey, I can use this pain signal to just get attention, full stop. So then it sometimes does something weird, which is it starts giving you pain because it wants you to pay attention to something or not do something, but you don't know what it is, right? So I'm not saying that all headaches are the unconscious saying, like, there's something going on here, pay attention to it, or something's going on here and I'd rather you didn't do it because it's a little bit too much for me to chew right now. Because sometimes a headache could be something physical, like you're not breathing properly, like you're too tense, or maybe even you have a physical condition like a tumor or something in the head. So you don't take pain away immediately, because this is something we'll talk about more. If you ever if you go see a client who complains about pain and wants you to take the pain away, you must absolutely get a medical referral first, because you need to have a doctor diagnose what's going on in case there's actually a physical problem that needs to be taken care of. The last thing you want to do is take away a headache, then discover 2 weeks later they've dropped dead because the tumor has just made their brain go, right? Does that make sense?
Right. So the appropriate response then in dealing with a headache is, I mean, if it hurts, do you take it away temporarily, or do you just?
Well, it depends. First of all, you can class the difference between if you work on yourself or work with someone else, right? If I get a headache, I'll try to just get rid of it and find out, first of all, is there a reason for this? If there isn't, let's just deal with it. Or if there is a reason for it, let's find a more helpful way or a less painful way for me to deal with that thing, right? If it's a patient that comes in, the very first thing you do is to say, I can't see you until you've got a medical referral. Give me your name or an address to your doctor. I will write him a letter. As soon as I hear back from him, then, or you go see your doctor. As soon as I hear from your doctor saying that you've seen him and everything's okay, then we can take the pain away or we can deal something with it, right? So you must have that person checked out, even if it's a milder pain or whatever it is, purely out of liability reasons and also purely out of, it just makes common sense. You don't know that person, so you don't know what may be going on with them, so you want to have a physical examination first. Assuming you have that. You have a referral, they've been examined, and it's been determined that it's not organic, or that maybe it's organic but they can't do anything about it anyway, then you can do something about taking the pain away, right? And there's a couple of things you can do. One thing is you can just literally mask the pain. The other thing is to assume that the unconscious mind is communicating something, and as we did with Wendy, give them an opportunity to learn from that, so that there's a trade-off. As you learn, you no longer need the pain because you're paying attention to the information, so you no longer need to pay with pain. Make sense? And that's where the trade-off starts happening. Answer your question? Great. Okay, one last question and then we'll begin.
I just want to add to that, the point that you made. If somebody has had like an abdominal trauma, for instance, pain is never addressed by the doctor. You don't go and give them the medicine, no matter how much pain they're in, because if you give them the pain medicine, you now have no mechanism of adjusting and deciding what to do. Because if you cover up the pain, or they've got penetrating trauma,
Amen to that. Seriously, the pain can be a small thing, but it's something that you really have to be careful, more than almost any other condition someone comes in with. That's the one you can be most careful of, because it is usually, or it is so tightly linked to a physical thing, and even a mild pain can sometimes be a symptom of a bigger problem. So that's why I take no chances, get a referral, get them properly checked out, and if you get a referral, in other words, the doctor knows they're coming for pain control hypnotherapy, they're basically saying it's okay. And even then, for example, if there's an injury, let's say someone's got a back injury, there's nothing they can do about it, they'd normally be taking massive painkillers, but they don't want to. Even then, I'd make one of two trade-offs. Either I would reduce the pain, but still leave a little, so they're still cautious, because you don't want them starting to do something stupid. Or the alternative, if it's a little less serious, like say it's an arm that's had a broken arm or something like that, then take the pain away and leave us a post-hypnotic suggestion that in the event that they start doing stupid things with the arm, like boxing, that the pain comes right back, maybe 10 times worse. So the trade-off is, if you start being stupid, the pain will come back worse to remind you to stop being such a stupid fool. Right? And you have to do this. Seriously, you have to do this. I did this with a friend. Had a big ulcer in the mouth. He couldn't eat properly. Again, he couldn't even sleep properly. Right? So he was a doctor, so he's actually checked himself out, so that's fine. We took the pain away. 2 minutes later, he starts like drinking things and poking around. It's like, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I just want to see if it's, it's like, I want to see, I know. This is even better. He starts drinking and saying like, relax a little bit with this. He goes, oh, no, don't worry about it. It just doesn't feel a thing. Then he orders like the spiciest thing on the menu, starts eating it, and the thing goes, I said, what do you use that for? Right? You have an open sore, and you start putting like those things in there. No wonder it's going to get worse, right? Because you're not taking care of it. So the pain signal is now appropriate. So then he changed his menu, and then we took it away again, and he behaved a little bit better after that. And this is a doctor, right? So it's like, what are you doing? So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because that is actually a very important thing.